Welcome everyone to another edition of Token Topics. We're going to dive into some Stellar and Ripple news. Could Ripple be working with Franklin Templeton? We already know Stellar is, so we're going to dive in and learn some more. Clear rules to the road could be upon us as the CFTC helps to regulate crypto. We're going to hear words from Pam, the commissioner of the CFTC, and also Brad Garlinghouse. We're also going to dive in and see connections between the CFTC and other major players leading to Stellar and potentially Ripple's technology. Remember, it's important that these connections and these partnerships are laid down first before major and more utility comes. Before I dive in, I'd like to let everybody know I'm not sponsored or paid for by Ripple or Stellar. With that out of the way, let's dive in. It's important to keep your assets, your crypto, safe. Purchase a DCENT wallet through Token Topics affiliate link in the description of every video, and you can receive an incredible discount. There's a lot of reasons to be excited if you're holding XLM or XRP. Now, there's big groundwork being laid, and a big partnership was actually announced last year between Franklin Templeton and Stellar, and Franklin Templeton is using Stellar for U.S. on-chain money government fund. But it gets better. Now Ripple is pitching their services to Franklin Templeton. So let's recap on the partnership between Stellar, and let's dive into this article so we can learn more about what Ripple is aiming for with Franklin Templeton. First, let's recap on the Franklin Templeton utility, the partnership between them and Stellar, and then we'll dive into the Ripple article. So last year, in April, Franklin Templeton, they announced on-chain U.S. government funds surpassed $270 million in assets under management. So what's the big deal? Well, Stellar fans were extra excited because the official record of shares ownership via proprietary blockchain integrated system currently utilize Stellar blockchain network for transaction activity. So it was very exciting. Skipping ahead in the article, we believe that blockchain technologies have the potential to reshape the investment management industry by providing greater transparency and lower operational cost for traditional financial products. Blockchains like Stellar's are important to the investment process of future assets built on blockchain rails, like the Franklin on-chain U.S. government money fund will eventually be interoperable with the rest of the digital asset ecosystem. So right there, think of Ripple. And we'll get to that in just a moment, like I said. And that is a comment from Roger Baston, the head of digital assets at Franklin Templeton. So skipping ahead here we have Stellar is built and optimized for asset tokenization. That's a topic I like to talk about on this channel. I'm going to dive more into tokenization. And the Franklin on-chain U.S. government money fund exemplifies the blockchain's usability, said Danelle Dixon, CEO of and Executive Director of Stellar Development Foundation. Stellar is evolving traditional financial products and processes, making markets more accessible and empowering more people. So when it comes to this technology, unfortunately, Bitcoin itself, Bitcoin's distributive ledger technology, is not going to do it. The high cost, the speed, the energy consumption. So what is going to be able to run this new financial system and to transact money with hardly any cost, low energy consumption? It's the main distributive ledger technologies talked about on this channel, such as the XRP ledger. We also have Stellar. We have the Zinfand's XDC network. And I like to talk about Metallica's products. We also have the Proton, or X-Proton. It's now XPR network. That is another giant in the making, which I'm going to be making more content on that here soon. But as we can see, it's the ones that are playing ball, that's working with regulators, working with governments, following Bank Secrecy Act, KYC, the list goes on. They're the ones that are doing it the proper way. Now, remember, Franklin Templeton was talking about interoperability, signaling they're going to be adding more chains. So here we go with Ripple. Ripple pitches XRP ledger to major investment firm Franklin Templeton. So David Shores, the Chief Technology Officer of Ripple, they pitched the XRP ledger to Franklin Templeton, highlighting its efficiency and potential amid growing crypto interest. So the nutshell, Franklin Templeton tweeted about exploring different blockchain networks like the XRP Ledger. In response, Shorts talked about XRP Ledger's strong performance, having handled millions of transactions over 10 years. He mentions its efficiency in dealing with real-world and crypto assets. Now, it continues here that Franklin Templeton has previously shown interest in blockchain technology. The firm's CEO talked about investing in public blockchains and Web 3.0. Short's comments have been well received by the XRP community, who are advocating for an XRP-based ETF. Well, we're going to hear from Jamie Dimon on tokenization. Tokenization is a topic I like to talk about on this channel. It's gaining in popularity for good reasons. It's not just value, it's data, it's identity, it's security, it's all kinds of things. We're going to see more of it. Now, Jamie Dimon is sticking to his guns about Bitcoin. You know, there's talks about after the Bitcoin ETF. He still is sticking to his guns. He doesn't see any value in it. What he does see value in, even though Bitcoin's a DLT technology, he's talking about these newer blockchain technologies, these newer DLTs where you have speed, you have no fees, you have transparency, it's energy efficient, you have clawback features, KYC, AML, bank secrecy. The blockchains that are abiding by those standards.
Topic that I know you find sort of laborious at this point.
That's a good word.
Which is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
This ETF was approved just about a week ago now, and I think a lot of people are trying to understand what it ultimately means.
Yeah.
JP Morgan, I imagine if you were a client of JP Morgan, you could call your broker and say, get me some of this ETF. Mm-hmm. What are you telling your brokers to tell them back when they make that call?
Yeah. So this is an important thing. This is the last time I've ever talked about this in CNBC, okay? So help me God. Blockchain is real. It's a technology. We use it. It's going to move money. It's going to move data. It's efficient. We've been talking about that for 12 years, too, and it's very small, okay? So I think we've wasted too many words in that. Cryptocurrencies, there are two types. There's a cryptocurrency which might actually do something. Think of a cryptocurrency as an embedded smart contract in it, and that we can use it to buy and sell real estate and move data. That may have value.
The idea of tokenizing things.
Tokenizing things that you do something with. And then there's one which does nothing. I call it the pet rock, the Bitcoin or something like that. And so on the Bitcoin, you know, there's, first of all, and I'm not trying to make a joke here. There are use cases, AML, fraud, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance, sex trafficking. Those are real use cases, and you see it being used for hundreds, maybe 50 or $100 billion a year for that. That is the end use case. Everything else is people train among themselves. So
speculate.
Yeah. Now, okay. Now, my last statement, the last time I ever talk about Bitcoin, is I defend your right to do Bitcoin. I think, you know, it's okay. I don't want to tell you what to do. So my personal advice would be don't get involved. But I don't want to tell any one of you what to do. It's a free country.
What do you make of the other firms, the BlackRocks of the world that obviously, and Larry Fink changed his view of this, obviously. Yeah. And maybe he changed his view because you think he genuinely believes in Bitcoin or believed it because he thinks that there's a marketplace for it and he wants to be part of that market. But what do you think of there's about a dozen big financial companies, Fidelity included.
Number one, I don't care. So just please stop talking about this shit. And I don't know what he would say about blockchain versus currencies that do something versus Bitcoin that does nothing.
Now I'm going to show you this video clip of Brad Garlinghouse speaking at Davos with Commissioner of the CFTC speaking on blockchain, regulations, the future of this technology. But before we check this clip out, I want to show you the close-knit between Franklin Templeton, the CFTC, Stellar, and Ripple. This is from an older document from official Stellar website, stellar.org. So as you can see, they've been working with the CFTC for some time, representing blockchain on the Commodities Futures Trading Commission's Global Market Advisory Committee. With the recent relaunch of its Global Markets Advisory Committee, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, or CFTC, is bringing its leadership and expertise to the discussion of the appropriate regulation of digital asset markets. The inclusion of digital asset markets in a GMAC's priorities demonstrates the importance of blockchain and crypto to the future of U.S. markets. The Stellar Development Foundation will be one of the 4 crypto-focused organizations, and the only one representing a blockchain to join representatives from traditional finance players such as JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, with Commissioner Pan at the helm, who you're going to hear from in just a moment, and from Brad Garlinghouse. The GMAC will guide the Commission on issues that affect the integrity and competitiveness of U.S. markets and U.S. firms engaged in global business. Now, later on in the year, this was in June of last year, Commissioner Pam from the CFTC announced new members and leadership of the CFTC Global Markets Advisory Committee and subcommittees. I just want to show you here, and one of them is from Stellar, but as you can see right here, Digital Asset Market Subcommittee, Franklin Templeton, BNY Mellon. Look at these huge businesses. So if we go down here, find it here, Technical Digital Assets Market Subcommittee. All right. You can see Franklin Templeton, Galaxy Digital, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, NASDAQ, Stellar Development Foundation. Adam Meinhardt, head of U.S. Government Relations.
What other governance do you think needs to be addressed now in this, adolescence, if you will, that we're going through?
Mm-hmm. So I think the point about how do we address market fragmentation potentially as different jurisdictions are taking different approaches to regulating blockchain technology and crypto. And I think it's the same as any asset class, as global markets in any asset class. So you do need to think about ways to mitigate market fragmentation through promoting regulatory cohesion. I think multilateral engagement through bodies like the Financial Stability Board, IOSCO, and the BIS are very productive. And in fact, I've actually proposed a CFTC pilot program that could be a path forward to having something like a BIS-style innovation hub project in the U.S. And I think that could help to move the needle forward to safely experiment and gather data to study what the effects of this technology are.
Well, that's a good transition for you, Brad, because for many, the speculative cases are the prominent cases. What do you think are some examples of non-speculative use cases, and how do we distinguish when drafting policy on those?
Well, a lot of times on the policy piece, we talk about drafting new rules, and it's like, well, it's not often we develop rules for technology. We typically develop rules and laws around the outputs, right? So things like KYC, know your customer, that doesn't change just because you're using crypto. Money laundering, anti-money laundering laws, that doesn't change because you're using crypto. So I don't think we need to think about those as somehow separate and distinct. We need to make sure those are being applied, and frankly, as we saw with the Binance settlement, they are. Maybe it was slow, and frustratingly, as Commissioner Pham pointed out, the courts in the United States have moved faster than the regulator. That is not in my judgment.
That is not normal.
That is not normal. I'm glad the courts are actually getting there, but it'd be better, I think, if we had, and I'm primarily speaking of the SEC, to actually take the time. I remember they opened up a whole bunch of new job descriptions on their website, lawyers to prosecute litigation, enforcement through litigation. Like, why not hire people to actually codify how this should work, as the UK has, as the European Union has, as the UAE has with VARA. I'll also give Commissioner Pham props. She spent time going around the world and meeting with a lot of these other regulators, where this is not rocket science. You could probably type into Sam's OpenAI, how do you regulate the U.S. and get a better answer than we're getting from the SEC. Maybe. I haven't tried that, actually. I should try it. Anyway, look, the amazing thing is I really do feel like the U.S. should and could be a leader in this market. And there are a lot of companies that are leading, but the U.S. government has not yet been providing that framework that should help.
To pick up on points that both of you raised, I think we need to get over the fact that if you are engaging in activity that involves money, banking, or markets, of course you're going to be subject to financial regulation. But what I think is more interesting is, how do we address non-financial activities? How do we distinguish between what is financial activity and commercial activity? So I'll give you an example. Amazon and eBay are digital marketplaces, but nobody thinks that they should be regulated like securities exchanges. So I think we need to focus on that set of laws. And I actually think a big way to move the needle forward in the United States is if we developed a definition for utility token like other jurisdictions, as Brad has noted, have. That's, I think, a step forward to understanding how this is going to impact the real economy.
You have retail investors and you have more sophisticated investors. What are the implications of focusing more of this conversation on the sophisticated investors versus the retail investors?
So I think what's great about the CFTC's regulatory framework, is that it's principles-based. And if you look at bodies like FSB and like IOSCO, they also take a principles-based approach because, of course, every jurisdiction needs to take their national laws into consideration. Well, the benefits of having a principle-based regulatory framework is that it works for both sophisticated investors and it protects retail investors. And I think the benefits of a principles-based framework is also that it allows regulators to anticipate and adapt to new and emerging risks because, as we've all seen, the rulemaking process can be bogged down, it can be halted, the courts can overturn it. It takes a long time, and it should take a long time. There should be opportunity for public consultation and notice and comment. But at the same time, there's a lot of other tools that regulators already have today. There's the power to inspect or examine, the power to enforce, as we've discussed, and the power to regulate. And I think those are broad authorities. We should be using all three.
Space of innovation, which I want to shift and ask you, regulation often can stymie innovation. And I'm curious from your point of view, how do you think this opportunity for policy to enable and optimize the technology as opposed to be restrictive and smother new use cases, because we're entering a whole new dynamic of considering how to deal with these kind of assets?
This is such an important question. So as Brad mentioned, I did a global stock-taking exercise to go and engage with other jurisdictions and understand how do they facilitate innovation. And so what I've observed is that there are three key ingredients that you need in order to foster innovation. So 1, the rule of law. 2, political stability. 3, regulatory clarity. And so I think it's incumbent upon regulators to do our part. And right now with the WEF Global Risks Report says that there are, I think, over half of survey respondents that see a moderate risk of global catastrophe in the next 10 years. That's a big deal. That's why we're all here, right, in Davos. And so when you look at the 4 main structural forces that are driving this change, climate, population, technology, and geopolitical, if all of this is changing our lives, then we regulators need to be looking to the future. We need to be trying to future-proof. I've spent my career, actually, my career's been defined by studying and addressing crises, whether it's the 90s savings and loan crisis, the 2008 financial crisis, or the COVID-19 pandemic. All of that has taught me that regulators, and sometimes the United States, have a tendency to be reactive. We need to flip that around and be proactive.
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do subscribe so you can stay up to date, and hit the like. It does help the algorithm so more people can find this video. Thank you.